And the problem that you're talking about is clear, right? Because some people estimate YouTube at worth $500 billion. Well, they give back to creators 2 to 3% of that a year. Not much, because they have massive leverage. Because where else are you going to go for discovery? Okay, and so what you're talking about is a coordination problem. How do we get all these we have all the power. Collectively, we have all the power, but we don't act collectively. We act individually. So how can we leverage our collective movements in a way that makes sense, where I don't have to trust everything about you or everything about you, but we're all going to do this, and we're going to start running towards the door. So kind of creating that structure, that system, so that it makes it easy for creators to do that is something that I think about a lot.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, too, how it's interesting because YouTube is full of individuals who are acting in their own interest, ostensibly, but beneath that, they're actually a collective that is acting in the interest of YouTube. And so, and I think part of breaking away from that system is first getting people to realize what's actually going on in the big picture here. It's like, you are a collective, it's just not in your interest. You're helping YouTube, you're helping the ad model, all that. You're helping people stay on the site, whatever it is. The data-driven, algorithmic, model that YouTube has put in place is really what they're feeding into. But if there's a collectivist model, now this sounds like digital communism or something, but if there's a collectivist model that benefits the individuals directly or a community of these individuals, I don't know. What would that look like?
I don't think it's communism, right? Because it's rewarding the value contributed where the value work is done. It's more capitalistic than anything, but it's not your crony capitalism. It's not the way, and so it's like these digital networks are relatively new in our world. They've been around for about 20 years, and they haven't really matured for 10 of those years, right? So we've seen the maturity of these digital networks, but it's really manipulative on what I would call the supply, the people actually doing the work on the network, because over time, because they don't act collectively, the central platform has more and more leverage over them. And it's creating this type of dystopian where the people actually bringing the value to the table, because of how the mechanics are set up, they're getting leveraged and constantly leveraged. And if you don't like it, well, I got 5 other people that are like you that I'll divert content to if you keep on, doing what we don't like, right? I mean, it's very manipulative, and it certainly is not in the spirit of how these networks were formed. I mean, I think the frustration you can feel around creators is this wasn't sold like this. It has changed dramatically. We wouldn't start like this. Now you're changing the rules and you're making it like this, and we wouldn't even have started this network like that. I wouldn't have put my sweat 10 years of building my channel if I knew that this was what the spirit was. And so that is the frustration. And so I just look at it as more of, when you say communism, it's like, no, this is actually just very thoughtful. Capitalism is this new model that's very transparent, rewarding value where value is contributed.
Yeah, mutual benefit organizations and cooperatives are very much, I think, central to capitalism. In addition to, people don't think as much about them because they're not, their everyday grocery stores and whatnot, but any people who come together voluntarily to create something are acting in a capitalistic spirit. So I want to call attention to a kind of bright note on this, which is basically that if things are going the way that we're talking about they're going, if the inevitable kind of direction of YouTube is more and more control and more restriction, that kind of thing, then the failings of that institution will be the energy that motivates the adoption of a new alternative, right? So the corruption or the excesses of YouTube will continue to feed energy into these alternatives, right? So this is a sort of analogous to Bitcoin, where like the continued printing of money plays the same role.
That's for sure. Yeah.
I've got a question about the value of the certainty of YouTube. When we're talking about, can this be dethroned? I think of all the people I know who do YouTube full time. They know the CPMs that they're going to get for the US, UK, Australia, Germany, et cetera. They know what they're going to get for India. They can look at a year's worth of video performances and know down to the dollar what CPM a sponsor is going to give them. And they use that certainty to pay their salary, to pay their editors, to pay for their health insurance, all these things that really matter to their life sustainability. And I think of how difficult it is to convince somebody that they need to give up the bird in the hand for, you know, whatever the hell the promise is for what's in the bush. Can you convince people to do that without simply just asking them to take a massive leap of faith?
Well, I think that it's not a massive leap of faith to, you know, do YouTube last. Like, start posting here, start building up. You don't have to just completely go off of YouTube. You can do both. And people do it wildly successful. They're wildly successful at having an alternative channel where they're getting direct relationship with their consumers and building up that component in another revenue stream while they're taking the leverage of YouTube's discovery, right? While they're taking the benefit of that. And so I don't think it's an either or where we have to ask creators. It could be nuanced. And if we continue to do that and more people go off platform, that'll create the network that has been bootstrapped off of this utility case where all of a sudden there is this discoverability here. There's so many people here that, well, maybe I can move because I have more autonomy, because I have more direct relationship with my consumers, because I have a recurring revenue stream that is predictable, that's more predictable than YouTube with more upside. And it's like, okay, now I can actually make the jump. So it doesn't have to be a light switch. And I would encourage anyone who doesn't think that is necessary that's very risky, you know. And just because it's been around for 10 years like that, things change. As we see all the time in our society, things have been around 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Things change. We just had a pandemic. Things change. Massive, big things happen. And
I think that rate of change is getting faster as technology gets more advanced and as people spend more time online. One example of this that is kind of relevant to this discussion is Twitch and the live streaming which is like a little different from, you know, making videos. Live streaming, there's more of a direct audience. There's more of a community-driven aspect and all that. I feel like Twitch I think they might have overplayed their hand with one of their policies that's related to this, which is they don't allow partnered streamers to stream on another platform. And if you do, you get banned on Twitch. And in fact, some big name people have been banned for doing this. And what this does is it creates this very insular type of community where Twitch is trying to form this monopoly of influencers on their platform. And they're so much so that they're preventing them from doing exactly what you're saying. So maybe that is a solution, is because if this keeps going, maybe someday YouTube will implement a policy like that, where they would like their partnered creators to never have a video on Odyssey or Rokfin or any other alternative. I don't know if that'll get to that point with YouTube, but I guess that I could see there being an opportunity there, because Twitch has seen that as damaging enough that they want to protect their partners from doing that.
With the advent of Patreon and other platforms like Rokfin, I think it might be a little more difficult, especially with the most popular ones. And it would, if a couple of those content creators were like, yeah, that's not worth it, we're going to go over here, that's a massive hit for YouTube. Because once you start to lose the nodes of the network, you have these network effects where as the network grows, it becomes exponentially more valuable with each additional node on the network up to a certain point, right? Well, the same thing is true on the downside. You start taking away nodes of the network. You start taking away different components of it. I don't know Twitch as much as I do know YouTube. You really start to it starts to damage the network. And so a couple of those people start to remove, then it does become much more insular. Now, I'm sure Twitch did the calculations in their head and they said, okay, this is already an insular network, and so let's kind of protect our moat here. But yeah, I think it would be more difficult for YouTube to implement a policy, but who knows?
And well, back to the 100th monkey effect and the creators, what we're seeing play out with live streaming is you have YouTube, you have LiveView, you have other streaming services buying out the influencers. So now they're streaming exclusively on Facebook Gaming or YouTube or whatever deal that they made. And I don't know if that's actually going to cause the shift, because it is sort of this forced one. It's like, okay, yeah, if you're getting paid, Mixer, great example. Ninja, he was the biggest streamer on Twitch. He got a 20 million, 200, whatever, huge deal with Microsoft, went over to Mixer, and yeah, he got viewers there. He brought viewers there, but they didn't go to anyone else on Mixer.
DLive did this too, didn't they?
DLive, yeah.
Where they threw a bunch of money at some really big people. And
we've gone through so many different streaming sites. Mixer died about a year after, not even. He didn't even fulfill his contract, and Mixer was done.
This is why I endorse sites like Restreamer, where you can just broadcast to many and have that indirection.
Yeah, so that's actually a great point. Is about this idea of, well, the way you tackle this is YouTube last. Well, what's the best way to put YouTube last? What if there's a service where you upload, instead of uploading to YouTube, you just upload to media hosting, and it goes on every single site? And if that's easy to do, I don't see why that won't take off. I feel like that is a very practical solution to all this.